Now, Belichick is complimentary of opposing players and opposing teams, but his answer here, and I'm going to input the answer in here, was very interesting because I didn't expect it to go this way. You see how I'm doing this? I'm really good at this production stuff, Mike. Yeah. I'm doing this all by myself.
You got this thing down. Who needs Catalana? Jenna who?
Buffalo Plus, your interactive look at the week in football, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, just like our favorite guest, our returning guest, the OG, Mike Giardi of Boston Sports Journal, once again, because the Bills are playing the Patriots, so we have to talk to our good friend. Mike, thanks again for coming on. I mean, I've lost count. Are we in double digits? We've got to be in double digits.
I feel like we're approaching that. I got to say, look at the new digs. You guys are all fancy. You know, my setup is crap now. I'm in a t-shirt. Like, you know, like, hey, let's just.
A couple of great t-shirt guys.
Yeah, that's right. I just got, just have to show up, and I just got to lift in, like, hey, whatever.
That's why you were late. I was wondering. You were like, hey, I can't do it till 5 o'clock. I got to get my workout in. I appreciate it, man. Crazy week. I mean, I feel like we text off to the side about one thing or another. It seems like for a while, the Bills made a lot of headlines. There was an article written about McDermott, Von Miller, off the field issues. And you're kind of texting me like, what is going on? In the meantime, the Patriots seem to be playing terrible football. So both of us were kind of had our hands full with different things. But I guess just where do you see this Patriots team coming off of a win in Denver, because all the reports are that Belichick's gone, but this team still seems to be fighting?
Yeah, I mean, it's the one thing, and it's interesting because there's been a divide, especially as the season's gone on, between offense and defense, because the offense just couldn't get out of their own way. And the change to Zappe has sort of given them some life. Not that he's playing great, but certainly much better than Mac Jones was. And I think, it was after the Cowboys blowout, I wrote like, hey, this is it for Mac. If he doesn't play well against the Saints, it should be over. He proceeds to throw an interception on the opening drive against the Saints for a pick six. They get shut out. It should have been it. They should have pulled the plug. His teammates, while they don't dislike him, were ready for them to pull the plug. Yeah. And they waited another, 6 weeks, and which buried them, obviously. Not that I'm convinced that Bailey Zappe would have them in the middle of a playoff run here either, but
right.
They definitely have gotten some life. And Zappe has sort of been able to bridge the gap between offense and defense, because now at least the defense looks at it and goes, well, we are scoring some points now. We don't have to pitch a shutout in order to win. They had the 3 straight games where they allowed 10 or less points and lost all 3, which hadn't happened since 1938, I think. So there is a little bit of life. And I think now they're sort of embracing the role of playing spoiler. They look at what they did to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's hanging on right now. Will they be in? Will they be out? If they don't get in, they're going to look back at that Patriots game on Thursday night at home and say, we lost to Bailey Zappe and a crappy Patriots team. And then, they pushed the Chiefs in the first half before falling apart in the second. And of course, last week, another win and sending Russell Wilson to his demise in Denver. So I think they would love nothing more. And the history between these two teams, the two head coaches. I think they would love nothing more than to come into Orchard Park and stop this Bills run.
I find it very interesting how the Patriots defense has continued to play at such a high level, because I always look at it like I look at the Jets defense. They still have a phenomenal defense, but great defensive teams that have horrible offenses eventually are like, screw it. Why are we playing so hard? Like, you've just seen that over the years as seasons go on. But this Patriots defense is still playing at an incredibly high level. Is there a boost in the offense just because it's not Mac Jones, or is this defense just playing for whether it's Belichick or just their jobs? I mean, can you put your finger on it?
I think there's a lot of factors to it. Certainly, I think the Zappe has given him some energy. Like I said, just the ability, all right, he's at least competent, right? As opposed to the other guy who was pretty much incompetent and putting us in terrible situations over and over again, or even giving up points. I think the other part of it is, you can only beat who's in front of you, so I don't want to take it away from him. But Russell Wilson's terrible. And if you watch the game, the only way Denver came back in the fourth quarter, the Patriots were gassed. They kind of gone in the tank a little bit offensively for a stretch there. So it was a couple 3-and-outs, fourth quarter, Russell's just throwing the ball up for grabs and hoping something happened. And a couple times something did happen, and they were able to work their way back into the game before the Patriots had the last second drive and won it. Pittsburgh, Mitch Trubisky. Oh, by the way, Mitch Trubisky, that was his last start, because then they went to
yikes,
right? Mason Rudolph. And I would have Mitch Trubisky's days in Pittsburgh are numbered. He's no good. And the Steelers offense hasn't been good. So you look at a couple of these games in particular and you just say, okay, well, you did what you had to do. I'm not taking it away from you, but I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my goodness, they're this top 5 defense. The numbers at the end of the year, the numbers will probably say something like that. But then you'll go back just as we did last year and you'll say, well, when they played the good ones, the good offenses, the good quarterbacks, what exactly happened? And by and large, you'll look at it and go, well, they beat Josh Allen. They gave up 25 points, right?
Yeah.
But otherwise, it hasn't been awesome against good offenses.
Yeah. It's funny to talk about good quarterbacks, because that's where I wanted to go with this next question. Because this week, Bill Belichick was asked about the growth of Josh Allen and how he has progressed through his first 3-4 years in the league, and how he rose from pretty much a project out of Wyoming into an all-pro quarterback who's again put himself in the MVP conversation. Now, Belichick is complimentary of opposing players and opposing teams, but his answer here, and I'm going to input the answer in here, was very interesting because I didn't expect it to go this way.
Well, I know when we asked about Josh Allen's development, you called it really remarkable, just the progress he made in those first 3 years. I'm curious when you felt that was sustainable, given how unusual it was, the leap he made, and how large those leaps were.
I don't follow. What's the question? Feels like you answered your own question.
He made, in my words, kind of an unprecedented leap those first 3 years.
Yeah.
When did you see that and go, okay, he's really good, and this will stick in a way? This is who he is.
Yeah. I don't know. Just kept doing it. Just kind of like Brady. I mean, once Brady got to a certain point there in 2003, that's pretty much the way it was the rest of his career. Wasn't really like that in 2002. Wasn't like that in 2001. Certainly wasn't like that in 2000. But once he got to a certain point there, about the mid-season of the 2003 season, and then in the playoffs, and then from then on, it was, his level of performance and play and consistency was at the very top of the league. So, different style of play, but I mean, yeah. Once those quarterbacks, usually when they get to that point, then they're able to sustain it. Sometimes you just don't know what the growth pattern is going to be. I don't know. It doesn't really matter where he was, where he is right now. He's pretty good, real good. So.
Yeah. So he makes the comparison to Brady, which I thought Belichick wouldn't compare anybody to Brady. You've been covering Belichick for 2 decades now. This. How surprised are you? And I know, like I said, normally he compliments punters and kickers and a guy on special teams or a backup cornerback. But for him to make that comparison, were you surprised? And have you heard anything like that before?
No, it's pretty rare. It's the same thing. We have these conversations. If you ask Belichick, Lawrence Taylor's in a class unto himself. Matthew Slater, the Patriots special teams maven, as he said, I've coached arguably three of the best players at their positions ever. The quarterback in Brady, the linebacker in Lawrence Taylor when he was a DC. And then, he's definitely stumping for Slater to be a Hall of Famer, which there could be a case there if you're ever going to put special team guys in. The other thing that occurred to me, though, about this, and I think his comparison was right in that, Tom didn't really start to become Tom until midway through 2003 into 2004. And then obviously took another leap in 2007 when they went, scorched earth on everybody and he threw the 50 touchdown passes before they finally lost their only game in the Super Bowl. So I think we've seen that with Josh, sort of the development, 52% passer, 59, then all of a sudden, boom, he's a rocket ship. And the Bills are now the Bills that we know of today, that we, when we talk about Super Bowls and all that, we're talking about the Bills being, a contender each and every year. And then there's the other part of me that said, well, Bill always does these things for a reason. And I thought to myself, well, he's feeling good because he finally beat Josh. It had been a long time, right? Other than the crappy game in basically a hurricane in Buffalo in that December game where they didn't throw the ball. The Patriots didn't throw the ball. And I thought to myself, he's feeling good about himself. And, well, he might be looking for a job. And who knows what happens if he beats Sean McDermott and then maybe Bills lose again in Week 18 and maybe Sean McDermott finishes the year with a couple losses and out of the playoff race and Bill might be looking for a job. And, boy, what better way to stick it to the Patriots than end up as the Buffalo Bills head coach. That's pure speculation. I'm completely throwing stuff against the wall.
Nope, it's fact.
But Belichick just completely, like, there's always an angle. He's always working some kind of angle. And, like, that's a far, wide-reaching angle. But nonetheless, like, my brain, I did go there for a second because it hasn't been the year. If Buffalo doesn't make the playoffs, that's going to be a difficult one to explain. I know there have already been reports out of there that Sean's fine, and I would assume that he is fine. But I think you and I talked about this in the offseason. You know, Leslie goes. They can say whatever they want, but Leslie was pushed out the door. And then Dorsey gets fired. And so the last man standing is Sean. Well, or Brandon Beane, if you want to put there as well. But, like, so I don't know, like, where do you go from here if something happens to Buffalo and they don't make the postseason? And then, you know, lastly, I just think that the relationship, and Sean said some very nice things about Bill, you know, historically this week, but I don't think there's much love, and I don't think there's much of a relationship between the two guys. You know, I think Sean has came in like, that's the program to beat. Then we beat them. And you guys still weren't giving me enough credit for turning the program this way and beating them. And then the game happened, the game where they threw the ball 3 times and beat you. Remember all the questions afterwards, like, does he have a Belichick problem? Can he not beat the Patriots? Then, of course, they stomped them about 3 or 4 straight times and pretty much, I think, proved that was nonsense. Yeah. But, you know, so I think there's just that edge. Like, can I butter him up and then go in there? And then I've talked up Josh Allen, compared him to Tom Brady in some way, shape, or form, but then I beat Tom Brady. See, I'm still good. I'm still really good at this.
The two things really stood out to me. And like I said, I always joke around. I think that Belichick's press conferences should have subtitles. Like, it's like he's a European hockey player, like the way that he grumbles through it. And you have been through more than I'm sure you would ever want to be. Mm-hmm. But in that sense of, man, he's really going far. And at the end of his answer, he pauses for a long time, and then it's kind of like, oh crap, I've talked a long time about this guy. And then it was like, well, he's good. I mean, he's great. It was like that. I've talked about him enough. I'm done. And then he kind of gives the answer. I want to bring in one last thing about the McDermott-Belichick relationship, because I thought McDermott did have very high praise because, like, their paths really hadn't crossed. Like, that coaching tree really doesn't. They're two separate trees. It's the Andy Reid tree and Belichick's tree. They didn't really mix. But I thought it was interesting. Do you remember in 2020? I think it was the COVID year. The Bills went into Foxborough and I think spanked.
Yes, sir.
And do you remember how long that handshake was after the game? It was like a 35-second post-game handshake, which was an eternity in Bill Belichick's life for post-game handshakes. And I remember asking Sean, because it was all Zoom then. And I remember asking Sean, I was like, I know you're not going to tell me, because that I think clinched the division. And I go, I know you're not going to tell me what Bill told you, but I go, what did that mean? And Sean did kind of get like, yeah, he's Bill freaking Belichick. Right. Like there is, and I thought that was a cool answer by Sean of like, yeah, he hasn't had an impact on me personally, but like the impact of the game, the defense, like he's a defensive guy. Sean would rather win every single game running the ball and winning 7-3 than he would be winning 35-30. Like, that's just not who he is. So I do think there's an interesting dynamic. I don't know if you remember anything or your thoughts about that game and that kind of interaction. That one always stood out to me.
No, you know what I was actually thinking of, Porter, and it's more towards the I don't even want bad blood, whatever you want to call it. But do you remember the game in Buffalo where Brian Belichick, who coaches the safeties, and he might have been the safeties coach then, or he might have just been a defensive, like, you know, quality control coach, was walking along the sidelines. Of course, they work out away from they stretch away from the tunnel. The Bills are in front of the tunnel, and he had a piece of paper in his hand, and Brian was clearly looking at what the Bills were doing, and Sean ran full speed and kind of got in his face. Yep. And that didn't go over very well in Foxborough, as you can imagine. And, you know, that's That's the youngest son. So I always wonder about that too, like the evolution of the relationship and the little pieces that happen.
Hey, was Sean there when Gronk spiked Trey, or was that Rex?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because do you remember Belichick went up to that coach? It was either Rex or Sean. And he said, that was bullshit. Like, my guy, I'm sorry. Like he apologized. I think it was Sean.
I might have been. Feels like it might have been. It could have been the first year.
First year. It would have been 2017.
Yeah, because was that Trey's first year? Had to be.
Yeah.
Because he was having a great year, and Gronk hit him with the people's elbow.
Yeah. So that, again, weird dynamic. Like, I didn't expect to go down this rabbit hole, but it's kind of cool that we did, of like respect for one another, both defensive minds, students of the game. Obviously, one's a master PhD of the game, but Sean does obviously consider himself that. And like the intertangled scenarios of respect and then dislike is just interesting. What do you think about this game? I mean, 12.5-point favorites. It's a lot for a division game. I've been saying that the Bills are in the NCAA tournament. It is just survive and advance. It doesn't have to be pretty. But I think they got their little bit of a letdown going to LA on short rest after an emotional win. Coming back home, I mean, do you think the Patriots can go on the road and do it again?
So I think if Zappe gives you, again, competent play, I think that they'll throw enough at Josh to make it difficult on the offense. I'm not saying stop him, but make it difficult, as they did in that first meeting at Gillette. And look, that was the only good game Mac Jones played this year. It was 4 good quarters from him. He's lucky if he has 4 good quarters all season, aside from that game itself.
Yeah.
So if Zappe can give them what he's basically been doing it for a half every week. It was the first half for 2 straight weeks, and then a fall off in the second half where they in both cases against Pittsburgh, he threw an interception, which wasn't totally his fault. Juju and Ezekiel Elliott were in the same place, and the ball got deflected, picked.
Yeah.
But then the very next possession, he should have been picked off on the sidelines. He wasn't, and then they were like, "We're just letting the defense win this game," and they hung on for dear life. And then against the Chiefs, he was 17 of 19 in the first half, and then the second half, just hung in the pocket a few times, a little too long. Took some sacks that were, their offensive line still not good, but took some sacks that were on him more than they were on the offensive line. And then by the fourth quarter, the Patriots were just playing to not get blown out as opposed to trying to win the game. So if he can give you, and then it was more of the second half performance this last time out, if he can give them one half but also not turn the ball over, which is being hammered into his head. He's got 2 turnovers in his 3 starts. Then I think they keep it close enough. I don't think they win, but I agree. I think they keep it close enough.
I agree. I think this is going to be another uncomfortable game for Bills fans. I think I had it as like 23-13. I just think the way that the Patriots defense is playing, and this is like the reverse. It's so funny. People always, and again, the Bills defense was always great for the drought years and things like that, but teams would come in just not planning to score a ton of points because they didn't have to. Like, they played conservative. I can see the Bills playing conservative, knowing that Zappe's not going to put up 25 points against them and going field goals and punts are going to win this game.
Yeah, it's interesting, Dan, because one of the things that Zappe sort of unlocked, I use that, I put it in quotes because let's not get carried away. This isn't Josh throwing deep to Gabe Davis, or something of that ilk.
Once a month.
But there were very little explosive plays with Mac Jones at quarterback. I think it was 15 explosive plays and 340 something dropbacks. Zappe already has 12 and 117 dropbacks. Zappe has a little bit of that, like,
okay.
The dryer just went off. I'm a 4-stringer. I'm playing for a job, like whether it's a starter, as a backup. I'm planning to be in this room next year or somewhere else. Like, I'm just going to sling it. And he has given them way more explosives. And he's in doing so, he's also Devontae Parker's awakened a little bit. And he's sort of a one-trick pony, Parker. He's a 50-50 guy, but a couple big 50-50 balls last week, 60 yards receiving a couple weeks ago as well, over 60, which, he's lucky if he had 200 yards receiving going into that process. So there's been a little bit more life there. He'll throw some up to Parker. Don't be surprised.
Yeah.
If they take 2 or 3 shots to Parker. And recently Parker's been catching.
I appreciate it. You're the best as always, man. the Buffalo Plus here is going to get to your house soon. It's sitting in a box. It's sitting in a box. I'm mailing something else out, and I went, I got this Mike. I was like, oh crap, that hat that I was supposed to send him like 5 months ago, the last time he was on. It was uncomfortable. But yeah.
Was it 5 months ago or like 3 years ago?
Either one. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, but I doubled down the last time you were on here. So I'm sure I'm going to get comments about that. And I'm sure if the McDermott, Gronk, People's Elbow wasn't to McDermott and Belichick, I'm sure we'll have a ton of comments.
100%.
Like,
hey, we were just riffing, just coming off the top of our head. Yeah, I think it's a shirt, a sweatshirt, and a hat now. Just saying.
Okay, that's fair. I appreciate it. Buffalo Plus store if you want to. If anybody else, Mike's stuff's on us, but shipping is free. So we'll say that. Hope you had a good holiday, man. I don't think we'll catch up again before the playoffs, but we'll keep in touch. And then again, we always got combine and fun stuff like that, man.
Absolutely, brother.
Hope all is well with you and the family. Again, Mike Giardi, the OG Buffalo Plus guest, Boston Sports Journal. Make sure to follow him. Appreciate it as always. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you next time here on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel.
Buffalo Plus, your interactive look at the week in football, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.